Hello. Today I'm going to be doing a little yoga demonstration, and I'm going to be showing you the most familiar asana sequence, which is the Surya Namaskar, better known as the Sun Salutation. Not only is the Sun Salutation in yoga rich in symbolic and mythic overtones, it also is rich with physical benefits. You might be wondering what the origin of the Sun Salutation is. In many cultures, light was the symbol of consciousness. Well, what's the primary source of light? The sun. And Hindus believe that the sun is the heart of the world and the source of all life itself. So the Surya Namaskar saluted the sun, in which gives them life. People are unsure of the specific moment in history when yoga became a practice, but it's suggested that it is as old as 2,500 years. So there are up to 24 versions of the Sun Salutation, but today we're going to do a version that has up to 12 stations and 8 poses. 4 of the poses, which are in reverse repetition order on the way back through the very end of the Sun Salutation. And by the way, this is my sister-in-law, Claire, and she has agreed to be my yoga model today, so thank you for that. Okay, so the first part of a Sun Salutation is our first pose, which is the mountain pose, better known as Tadasana. Okay, so there are a couple different parts of a mountain pose, and we're just going to start from the bottom and work our way up. So the first thing that we're going to work on is our feet. Now with our feet, we want them to be straight down from our shoulders, so we don't want them to be too wide. Claire, you can show me what really wide feet might look like. Yeah, we don't want to be a little too wide. We want to come back to, we don't want to get super close together, okay? We want them to come straight down from the shoulders, okay? You can tell she's doing really nice keeping her toes parallel. We wouldn't want to bow our toes out or bow our toes in. We'd want to keep them really, really straight and parallel, okay? The next thing we're going to focus on is our legs. Now, even though we don't want to lock out our knees, we don't want these to be loose, okay? We want to keep our thighs really active and kind of keep pressure all the way into the floor. So she's going to be actively pressing her heels into the floor. The next thing I want her to work on is going to be her straight back. I want a straight back and neck all the way down. It should be a straight line all the way down. She's not going to super lift her chin, and she's not going to tuck her chin to her chest. She's going to keep it right there in the middle. And then with her arms, she's going to bring them right in front of her chest, okay? Right in front of the heart. That's where they felt like they got all their energy from. And, you know, back to the sun being the heart of the world, they wanted to start there. So that's why we're starting in the mountain pose here. Now, fingertips are all being pressed together. Her palms are being pressed together. And the tendency is when you start to press your hands together, you start to sink your shoulders forward. We want to keep our shoulders back. It brings our shoulder blades together, and it also lifts our chest. Okay? So what she's showing you right now is a perfect mountain pose. Alright, so the next pose in our Sun Salutation is our upward salute, also known as Urdhva Hastasana. It's hard for me to say. But the upward salute, okay? So we're going to start our explanation starting from the mountain pose, going into our upward pose, okay? So keeping our feet and our legs in the same exact position, she is going to slowly lift her arms above her head, all the way till they're above her head, then she's going to release her hands apart, okay? Now she's not going to lock out her elbows, because that's going to put tension in her shoulders. We also want to try to lower the shoulders just a little bit. Okay, so still keeping lengthened arms, okay? Keeping this neck all the way straight with her back. She's going to lean back from her hips as far back as she can. And some people have a little bit more flexibility than other people do in their back, and that's okay. So you can come back up, okay? And the tendency with leaning back is to lean back from the shoulders and to sink back. But what you want to try to concentrate on is just leaning back from the hips. So you're going to lean back just slightly. Okay, and you can hold it there, and that's the end of the upward salute. So starting from our standing salute, we're going to go into the standing forward bend, also known as the Uttanasana. So from here, she's going to keep her hands where they are, and she's going to slowly start to roll. She's going to start to curve her vertebrae, bringing her arms straight down. Then once she gets about halfway, she's going to go ahead and release her neck. So she wants to feel no tension here. She should be able to move her head around really freely and nicely. And depending on your experience and your flexibility level, you might be able to get your fingertips on the floor. Some people can get full palms on the floor. But for especially someone like Claire, who maybe didn't stretch a lot before we started this, she might not be able to get as far as maybe you could later, okay? So you're just gonna start to release your fingertips towards the floor as far as you can. Now we're not locking at our knees. We wanna keep nice loose knees, and we can see that our feet are still in the same position, okay? So again, the most important part is a really nice curved vertebrae and a nice released neck, and that's the end of the standing forward bend. So our next pose in the sun salutation is going from the standing forward bend into a low lunge, also known as the Banarasana. So from here, Claire is just going to bend her knees slightly. She's going to place her palms all the way flat on the floor. She's going to extend her right leg straight back. She's going to lower her hips. We're going to make sure, we're going to lift the chest, okay? And then from here, we want to make sure that her knee is not over her ankle. This is my puppy Tucker, okay? So we want to make sure the knee is not over the ankle. So if she was really bent forward, that would be incorrect. We also don't want to be really far back, overextended. We want to bring it straight up from the ankle, okay? And then from here, she's going to lift her chest again. She's going to place her hands on her left knee and lift her chest, make it really, really open. And that's the end of the Banarasana. Okay, so now we're going to go in the next pose in the sun salutation, going from the low lunge into a plank position, also known as the Chaturanga Dandasana. Okay, so from here, she is going to lower her chest, place her palms back on the floor, completely flat. She's going to bring her left leg to meet her right leg. Again, we are going to stay kind of shoulder width apart with our feet. She wants to have the envision of a completely straight line all the way down her back, all the way down. So we don't want to lift our hips too high, okay? And we don't want to lower them to the floor, which is the tendency with push-ups sometimes as well. So we're going to have a completely straight line. Her elbows are nice and straight, and her palms are flat and parallel to the floor. And this is the plank position. So Claire is bravely holding the plank position. Now we're going to move into the cobra position, which is the Urdhva Mahasvanasana. Okay, so she's going to lower her hips to the ground, release her feet and her toes. Her palms are going to still stay flat on the ground, and you can see how she's lifted her chest. And this is actually the very, very last part of the pose. You're going to lift your chin up to the sky. So this whole pose obviously looks like a cobra, but it's a nice curved spine. It's going to stretch out that back. And that's the end of the cobra pose. So the next pose in the sun salutation is going from the cobra pose to the downward facing dog. Speaking of dogs, here's my puppy again. So the next pose is the downward facing dog, also called the Adho Mukha Svanasana. So she is going to flex her feet. She's going to plant her toes into the floor. She's going to keep her hands where they are, and she's going to lift her hips. She's going to try to completely straighten her legs. Now the goal is to bring her chest closer to her hips. This is going to make a completely straight line all the way down her back. And this is also called the downward facing dog. Probably the most common yoga pose. Okay, so this is the end of the downward facing dog. Okay, so the last few poses in the sun salutation are actually in reverse order of what we've already learned. So we're just going to kind of review it on our way back. So going from downward facing dog, we're going to lower our hips to the plank position. So you're actually keep your knees straight. Okay, again, it's that straight line. We're in the cobra position. Then from here, she's going to bring her right knee up to in between her hands. Again, keeping the knee not over the ankle. Go ahead and straighten the back and lift the chest, resting your hands on your knee. Going from this low lunge, she's going to place her palms on the floor. Bring her left foot to meet her right foot. Again, shoulder width apart. Then she's going to slowly roll up and straighten her legs. That's the standing forward bend. She's going to keep rolling her back up nice and slow. At the same time, she's going to start lifting her hands up above her head for the upward salute. Facing her palms inward. She's going to lean back from her hips, do a nice little lean back, and then from here she's slowly going to bring her hands together, bring them in front of her chest, pressing her palms together, and we are back in the mountain pose, and that is the complete sun salutation. So now that we've learned all the poses and the stations, we're going to kind of do a silent review, and we're actually going to do it to music like you would in an actual yoga class. So we're going to go through and make sure, Claire, that you are breathing in and out, in through your nose and out through your mouth, and it's going to be a completely silent review to music. So that's what we're going to do now.